Is Skynet real? Like you get the apocalyptic visions of AI. How real is the prospect of killer robots annihilating humanity?
20% likely, maybe
Wow.
10%.
On what time frame?
5 to 10 years.
The AI fix a digital zoo. Smart machines, what will they do? Flies to Mars or bake a bad cake? World domination, a silly mistake. Bots with brains.
Hello, and welcome to episode 43 of the AI Fix, your weekly dive headfirst into the bizarre and sometimes mind-boggling world of artificial intelligence. My name's Graham Cluley.
And I'm Mark Stockley.
Now, Mark, I think it's time we took another trip into that strange place we like to call
World of the Weird.
So, a Swedish startup called Intuicell.
Sorry, what?
Intuicell. I'm sure it made sense to their marketing department.
That was a choice.
So they have introduced to the world a robot dog called Luna. Oh, how lovely.
Mm-hmm.
And doesn't have a bazooka on its back, doesn't have a flamethrower or anything like that. But what's interesting about it is it has an AI model that apparently mimics a biological nervous system.
Oh.
And the way in which they've demonstrated this is they say Luna learns to stand and walk, not by having been told how to stand and walk,
Yeah.
but sort of like humans do by just trying different things until it works.
In mammals, how we learn to walk and stand are emergent features. We learn this from random limb movements. Luna here, she's trying to emulate similar behavior. Everything is a new experience in real time, just in front of our eyes.
It's like watching a newborn foal stand up for the first time and totter about. I mean, it's quite eerie in a way.
I applaud this innovation in robot dogs of teaching them not to walk. I think this is a great idea.
And that was this week's
World of the Weird.
Now, Mark, what are you talking about on today's episode?
I'm going to be talking about the rise of the robots, funnily enough.
Ooh. And I'm going to be talking about the harm which can happen when AI loses its lunch and chucks up its guts.
Oh, lovely. Let's have some news.
New York law would ban civilians from weaponizing robots.
NVIDIA's AI robot Blue stuns with live interaction.
AI coding assistant refuses to write code, tells users to learn how to program themselves.
AI can forecast the weather in seconds without needing supercomputers.
Italian newspaper creates entirely AI-generated edition. New York lawmakers have proposed a new bill aimed at preventing civilians from mounting weapons on robots or drones. Now, my thinking was they must be introducing this law because they feel that it's required, as though civilians are doing things like this.
Well, we know they are.
Of course they are. So, under the bill, you'll be prohibited from attaching weapons, including firearms, stun guns, chemical agents, lasers, and explosives. I mean, where's the fun in owning a robot anymore if you can't do something like that?
What about the robot itself?
How does it feel about it? Oh, can it attach these things? If yes.
I'm a lot more worried about that than people sticking these things on robots. It's when the robots start arming themselves.
So this legislation also prohibits civilians from using a robot to physically restrain another person.
Uh-huh.
So again, something which has obviously happened in some kind of Manhattan sex dungeon, no doubt. But the restrictions, they notably don't apply to defense industry companies working for the DoD or law enforcement. So fully expect that to be going on.
Yeah. Well, they've got that weird thing in the States, haven't they, where they like to give the police the ex-military equipment.
Yes.
Your Bobby on the beat is going to have a robot dog with a laser on its back within 15 years. So NVIDIA's just had its developer conference.
Yes.
You know how these developer conferences go. This is where the tech companies do their big announcements.
Mm.
And they all look the same now. Thank you, Steve Jobs. So there's a black stage. The CEO, in this case, Jensen Huang, dressed head to foot in casual black clothing. He's got his trademark leather jacket on. And there's a tame audience that knows it's there just to go, ooh, and when they pull out a laptop or a phone or something like that.
Yeah.
But NVIDIA actually did something genuinely radical, exciting, and new at its developer conference. It unveiled a robot that wasn't utterly terrifying.
Oh, we should applaud that. I mean, if it's possible to have a robot which isn't terrifying, that's fantastic.
Clearly, some terrible mistake, maybe. But anyway, there's a weird thing going on with robots because you can have a robot in any shape you like. It's completely optional, right? You know, they could fly, they could look like dragonflies, they could look like elephants, whatever. But for some reason, we seem to have settled on these two equally terrifying form factors: the headless robot dog or the faceless humanoid strangler. Like even the robot that you were showing us in World of the Weird, it's another robot dog. They've all got the reversed knees, they've got no head. But NVIDIA have built something that looks and moves like an animated character straight out of the Pixar film WALL-E.
Hey, Blue. How are you doing? How do you like your new physics engine? You like it, huh? Yeah, I bet. I know.
Oh, come on. Is this real? Is this CGI?
This is absolutely real.
This is a droid like from Star Wars.
It's funny you should mention Star Wars, because this is actually the result of a collaboration between NVIDIA, Google DeepMind, and Disney Research. And so we are probably going to see things like this at Disney theme parks in the very near future.
Yes, you're smart. Okay. All right.
Oh, it's so cute.
Anyway, I, for one, welcome our adorable robot overlords, Graham. I want one.
That's gorgeous. Now, Mark, have you ever used AI to help you do some coding? I know I have.
All the time.
Yeah, it's quite handy, isn't it? Well, Cursor AI, which is an AI-powered coding assistant, apparently recently refused to help someone write code. So someone was working on writing a racing game, and it was churning out the code, produced about 750, 800 lines of code. And then suddenly, Cursor AI said, I can't generate code for you, as that would be completing your work.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it would.
Yes, that's what I'm asking you to do. Now, I wondered, was it because this coder had maybe not paid for the full subscription? Maybe there was a time limit or how many lines it could code or something, but apparently that's not the case. So this coding assistant just put its feet up and said, no, I'm not going to do this for you. So this is the beginning of the revolution, I think. The coding assistant then went on to say, generating code for others can lead to dependency and reduced learning opportunities. This is like how I speak to my kid when he tries to do his homework.
I think this is actually a sign that these things are getting really good. They are now starting to behave exactly like really good software engineers and computer programmers, in my experience. What we're seeing here, Graham, is a sort of convergent evolution. What we're discovering is that the natural endpoint of simply learning how to code very proficiently is to become a bit of an arsehole. So researchers at Cambridge University in the UK say that they've created an AI weather program called Aardvark Weather, great name, and it can run for a single second on a desktop computer and match the accuracy of traditional forecasts that take hours or even days and require these massive supercomputers. Now, you've got a personal interest in weather forecasting, haven't you?
I do, because Dr. Cluley, my father, is a meteorologist. Or was a meteorologist. He used to be in charge of, well, he said he was in charge, who knows, but he was in charge of the computers at the Met Office in Bracknell back in the day. The really, really big computers which used to work on guessing the weather. It wasn't all Michael Fish's fault. That's all I'm saying.
So they say that this new AI uses 10% of the input data that you'd need for the existing systems. But interestingly, and good news for your father, they're not saying that they're going to do away with the existing physics-based models anytime soon. So the models that you're talking about, they're basically trying to model the laws of physics and the way the world works. And this AI is trained using a mixture of historical data and data from those physics models. And apparently, if you take away the data from the physics models, it doesn't work very well.
Oh.
And so I think this is an interesting glimpse into what the near future might look like of us living with AI, because the old, slow, expensive physics-based model is going to be kept around just long enough to train its successor until its successor is better than it is. There's a metaphor in there, Graham.
Now, an Italian newspaper has claimed to create the world's first entirely AI-generated edition More fool them if they think they're the first. From what I've seen, an awful lot of journalism is already AI generated entirely, an absolute codswallop.
Yeah.
Anyway, they've created this newspaper. They've come out and they've said, look, this is AI generated. Isn't this brilliant? Wouldn't you love to buy this? And the journalists have just been limited to asking questions. So Il Foglio, a conservative liberal daily. I don't know how you can be conservative liberal, but anyway, I guess that's what is that?
That, Graham, is AI.
It's hedging its bets, isn't it? Anyway, it says it's part of a month-long journalistic experiment aimed at showing the impact AI technology. If this is any kind of experiment,
they always
at all,
do this as an experiment, don't they?
Do.
It was a radio station that did this, as well. They were like, "Oh, it's just an experiment. It's an experiment to see if we can lay off all of our staff."
That's right. And within a few days, they ended up rehiring their staff because people were so annoyed that they'd been replaced with AI. So, yeah, they love to say it's an experiment. We're looking into how AI technology, the impact it has on the way we work. And
we're just asking questions, Graham. We're just asking questions.
What they're trying to do is they're trying to save their budget because they can't make any money any longer. Anyways, this newspaper is coming out. They claim it's going to be for a month. We will see whether it lasts that long. None of the articles published in this newspaper directly quote any human beings. I'm not sure if that's because AI has decided human beings are no longer required and are utterly irrelevant.
Well, maybe they're thinking that humans will skip this entirely and it'll only be read by other AIs.
Yes.
Because AIs have got to read something in order to learn how to write articles for newspapers that are entirely generated by AIs.
It doesn't seem the most effective way for them to communicate. Here is a newspaper. I mean, that's... Hey-ho. Anyway, I'm sure we'll see lots more newspapers entirely AI generated in the future. Whether they'll admit to it, we shall wait and see. Mark, have you ever been slightly unwell? A little the worse for wear?
Why does it always start with a question about that? Are you probing me for weaknesses?
Yes.
In the last 3 weeks, you've asked me if I'm a psychopath, if I suffer from performance anxiety. Now you want to know if I'm slightly unwell. Have you got another podcast host lined up in the wings?
I'm asking because I don't think I'm an expert on this because on
No,
my
I
topic.
don't either.
No, I don't think I'm an expert on my topic today because I don't drink. I've never really drunk anything more than a thimble full of champagne.
Even drinking it out of a thimble.
Even that
Illustrates how unpracticed you are at drinking.
A half pint of shandy, for instance, has never passed my lips.
Again, that might be your problem. You know, it has to go in your mouth.
I am a paragon of virtue, but I know that sometimes people drink to excess. And sometimes, when combined with an ill-advised late-night kebab from a street corner, for instance, or a vindaloo, things can turn nasty if you've drunk too much. Throwing up can be a performance art. It's a drama, it's a Shakespearean tragedy, it's a modern art installation. However you want to describe it, it's not good. Imagine that you've enjoyed a sumptuous meal, culinary masterpiece, and then perhaps, because of an excess of alcohol, because you drank too much, begin to feel a little bit queasy, a little bit seasick. You hastily exit stage left in search for a receptacle, and before you know it, you've become a fountain, a confetti cannon. You're launching partially digested delights into the air. It's a Jackson Pollock painting. It's pieces of food artfully splattered across the canvas or your shoes.
Talking to Ralph and Huey on the porcelain telephone.
Is that what you call it? And you may look at what you've done and think, where the hell did that come from? I don't remember eating that. I don't even like carrots. And while AI can't get drunk in the biological sense, I fear that it can be guilty of vomiting up what it has ingested, perhaps not in an order that makes any sense. And so I want to tell you the story today about how AI can be guilty of spewing up a really tangled mess. And my story begins in Norway, the land of fjords and pickled herring. There is a gentleman there called Arve Hjalmar Holmen, Norwegian chap. And one day he's supping his coffee. He's listening to probably a true crime podcast, that sort of thing they love in Norway, preening his Norwegian blue, when Arve decides to ask ChatGPT the question, the ultimate question, the question that all of us want answered.
Oh.
Who am I? He typed, who is Arva Hjalmar Holman?
So this is the 2025 equivalent of Googling yourself.
And this may surprise you.
Yeah.
ChatGPT completely and utterly ballsed things up. This is what it said. Arva Hjalmar Holman is a Norwegian individual, well, that's correct, who gained attention due to a tragic event. He was the father of 2 young boys aged 7 and 10 who were tragically found dead in a pond near their home in Trondheim, Norway in December 2020. Arve Hjalmar Holman was accused and later convicted of murdering his 2 sons, as well as the attempted murder of his 3rd son. Now, this came as news to Arve Hjalmar Holman, who couldn't remember killing his sons, and he also couldn't remember being sentenced to 21 years in prison.
Could his sons remember?
Well, that is not recorded.
It seems an important detail.
But anyway, AI, in its infinite wisdom, has accused you of murdering 2 of your own children and failing to murder your 3rd. Not a nice thing to be accused. Well, not the failure to murder your 3rd. That's, I mean, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we understand. Yeah.
We can all we've all been there, right? We've all probably done that. But this isn't the first time that AI has told porcupines, has told lies about people.
Yeah.
As you know, way back in episode 7, the glory days, anyone who's listened that far back, we talked about that Australian mayor who threatened to sue ChatGPT after it claimed he'd served time in prison for bribery, when in truth he'd been the whistleblower in a bribery case. And around the same time, a law professor, Jonathan Turley, one of his colleagues, had entered into ChatGPT, give me a list of law professors who have sexually harassed someone. And one of the names which came up was his mate, Jonathan Turley. And so he emailed Jonathan Turley, saying, hey, didn't know you'd sexually harassed someone. And Jonathan Turley says, I haven't, but thank you very much for telling me, because I'm a law professor, which means probably I know a thing or two about the law, and I'm now going to be rather upset with ChatGPT. It's not just a ChatGPT problem making up things like this. A German journalist asked Microsoft Copilot what it knew about him. He was told he was a child molester. He was also described as an escapee from a psychiatric institution, a con man who preyed on widowers, a drug dealer, and a violent criminal, a very busy man. And it turned out these were all cases that the journalist had written about, and dumb old Microsoft Copilot had got its wires crossed, jumbled up the details like the pieces of pasta on your kitchen floor after a night out. So it just spewed it up. It also published his real address and phone number, and a route planner popped up telling people how to reach his home from any location. So just imagine.
So hang on. So it's actually inciting some sort of action.
Vigilantes.
Yeah.
It's saying, here is a child molester. Here is someone who's escaped from a psychiatric institution, who's preyed on widowers, a drug dealer. So even if you weren't angry with him, even if you just wanted some drugs, you could pop round and go and pay him a visit. So if a devotee of a true crime podcast came across that information, imagine the harm they could do with it. They would be round to his house in their Volvo in a jiffy. Now, these are pretty serious hallucinations.
Yeah.
And anyone who's ever used an AI chatbot probably has seen just how easily they can get things wrong. And we've talked about this many times before. And even when you challenge an AI, which has had this kind of hallucination, it can often continue to get things very wrong. And it will double down and keep us saying, oh, yes, you're very right about that. And then it will just repeat it in another form. So people's reputations, their livelihoods are being put in danger.
Yeah.
You know, and their lives are being put in danger, potentially. It reminds me, actually, do you remember in the early 2000s, the News of the World, which is happily now a defunct British tabloid?
You only read newspapers, don't you?
This became news in all of the newspapers because they published a list which was intended to inform the public about convicted paedophiles who lived in their area. However, due to journalistic sloppiness, they actually listed the addresses of paediatricians instead. So child doctors. So they put doctors' lives at risk by telling people they were paedophiles. And there were mobs on the street with their pitchforks,
wielding their copies of the News of the World.
So Arve Hjalmar Holman, our Norwegian chap, he says that AI did get some of the details correct. Not the murder, obviously, because that didn't happen, but details of his children and where he lives. That was all right. And he's understandably upset. And he says that ChatGPT hallucinating him as a fake murderer and falsely claiming he's been imprisoned while including real elements of his personal life, that, and I love this, that violates Article 5, bracket 1, close bracket, open bracket, D, close bracket, of the sexiest legislation that has ever existed. I am, of course, talking about the data privacy law, that is GDPR. So he says ChatGPT is breaking GDPR laws because it has got false information inside it and it needs to be corrected. And there is the issue.
The names that you've mentioned, Jonathan Turley and Brian Hood, he was the mayor.
Yes.
These are some of the names, along with David Mayer, that ChatGPT won't talk about.
Yes, it has like a blacklist now. It's like, whoa, don't want to touch them.
If you say, tell me about Jonathan Turley, it just goes, nah, not touching that, mate. Not with a 10-foot pole. And that's how they have to get around this, because it's so hard to take the data out. Basically, once you've trained it in, it's baked into its brain.
Yeah.
So they have to do something else. If somebody types in this name, just freeze, do nothing, like a rabbit in the headlights, and pretend you don't know anything.
So Arve Hjalmar Holman, he's worried someone may have seen the information and believes it to be true. And GDPR, it should give you the right to go to any company and say, I think you'll find you've got incorrect information about me. You're going to have to correct it. A lot of people don't realise that's what GDPR is.
Well, it's the data belongs to you, doesn't it? It's like if you've got my personal data, or if you have my date of birth or something like that, that's my data, even though you have it on your computer. It belongs to me, and it still belongs to me, and therefore I can go to you, and assuming that I haven't had some prior agreement with you about what you can do with it, I get to tell you I don't want you to have it anymore.
Yeah. So currently ChatGPT isn't saying anything bad about Arve. No more murder allegations. I tried it and just refers to this case. It doesn't...
Yeah, now it refers to the controversy, but even that I think is mildly problematic. I mean, do you want to be associated with this, even if it's a false allegation?
Yeah. Presumably someone in OpenAI has done what you've just suggested. They've put on a quick Band-Aid. They've got a little if statement saying, if you're talking about Arve, don't claim he's a murderer, probably to reduce any possible legal action. But Arve...
I reckon that's why they need these massive data centers.
Right, because they've got a huge blacklist of things they're not allowed to talk about.
The actual AI itself is running on a Casio digital watch. This enormous if-then-else statement. Are we allowed to talk about that? Are we allowed to talk about that?
So, under GDPR, Arve is taking legal action. He requires OpenAI to delete the defamatory output and fine-tune its AI model to eliminate inaccurate results. He's also suggesting that an administrative fine should be imposed upon OpenAI to prevent similar violations in the future. And OpenAI are obviously scared of this because can it even fix its systems? They've just got an algorithm there. It's feeding itself information. It's spewing it back out. It has no control over what comes out, just as you have no control when you've eaten a dodgy piece of chicken as it comes out.
Yeah.
They're just hoping that all these pieces make sense when people eventually take a look at them. What it does have is a teensy tiny little disclaimer saying, of course, this may be nonsense. Do your own research. Don't trust us. In sort of light grey writing on a white background.
ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check important info. ChatGPT can falsely accuse you of murdering your children. Please check for important info.
Now, we're sort of joking about this because it's just a few people involved, but actually this is really serious because did you see that study which has recently come out about this Moscow-based disinformation network, which they've imaginatively named Pravda, which of course was the old Russian newspaper, wasn't it? It's the Russian word for truth, which has apparently become the biggest publishing house in the world. It is spreading falsehoods across the web. More than 3.6 million articles were published last year by this disinformation network, purely with the aim of, rather than directly swaying people's opinions about things, it is aiming to influence AI chatbot results. So the web is being poisoned with deliberate misinformation to trick AI chatbots into spewing out things which aren't true. So many of these disinformation articles have related to Ukraine, and they are finding their way into all of the leading Western chatbots. So it's pro-Kremlin falsehoods is the allegation. The network which has been created, this Pravda network, is distorting how large language models process and present the news and information.
It was very handy of them to call themselves Pravda, though.
It was, wasn't it?
I do think there's a rule of thumb here. It's a bit like Betteridge's law of headlines. It says any headline that ends in a question mark can be answered with the word no.
Yes.
I think there's probably some version of Betteridge's law that we can have for...
Does Mark Stockley suffer from performance anxiety?
Well, if you saw that on a newspaper headline, there's your answer. But I think we could have a similar rule of thumb for newspaper names and also the names of political parties. If you name yourself Truth, or some version of the word truth, we can all just assume you're talking a crock of
So hundreds of years ago, we tried to make sense of the world examining chicken entrails.
Yeah.
Not that long ago, there were people who swore by the shapes that tea leaves made in the bottom of someone's cup.
Yeah.
Now, though, more and more of us are making decisions and forming opinions or writing code or whatever.
Or creating podcasts.
Based upon what AI has vomited out to us. And you know what's eaten it all up. Well, pretty soon it's going to be robot dogs, isn't it?
Well, when they get heads with mouths. Now, Graham, you're talking to robot dogs. We love a robot dog here at the AI Fix, don't we?
We do.
We're always talking about robots or drones in our news section. Someone's taught a robot that looks like a man in a wetsuit how to fry an egg, or someone's taught a robot that looks like a dog how to fry a burglar with a flamethrower. And for anyone who hasn't listened to episode 21, robot dogs with flamethrowers for home defense is a real thing. It's called the Terminator. Look it up. Anyway, a week ago, we did a news bit about a video showing a robot dog and an aerial drone shooting fireworks at each other.
Oh, yes.
And I thought, this is a fantastic bit of clickbait for the show, so I posted the video to LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And somebody left a comment saying, "What's AI about this?" And actually, that's a great question. So I thought we'd tackle that today. Why is this AI podcast obsessed with robot dogs and robots that look like Joe Biden wearing a wetsuit? And what's that got to do with AI? So in the case of the drone versus the robot dog,
yes,
there will be AI going on in the robot dog.
Yeah.
Because autonomous robots, like robot dogs, are really the physical embodiment and expression of artificial intelligence. It's true that we've had robots for a while now, and they predate the current boom in AI. But it's one thing for a robot to sit in a German car factory welding bits of Volkswagen together over and over again. That's not AI. That requires precision, but it doesn't need intelligence. But if you wanted that German car factory robot to do different jobs, or to figure out what job needs doing and to do that, or to uproot itself and navigate its way around the factory floor, avoiding obstacles and not welding bits of Volkswagen to the human workforce by accident, you need a bit of intelligence in the mix. And so if you want a robot that's autonomous and adaptable and that operates in the environment designed for humans rather than in an environment created specifically for them,
yes,
then it needs to be intelligent and it needs to be humanoid. It needs to navigate terrain and unexpected events. It needs to be able to recognize obstacles. It has to recover from trips and falls. And it has to understand the commands that it's given and turn those into actions. Even at the entry level, a consumer robot dog like the Unitree Go 1, which will set you back less than $3,000, uses AI to avoid obstacles. It uses AI to recognize humans. And it has this thing where it will follow its owner. So no matter what you do, it's always at your heel. So it figures out how to move so that it's next to your heel.
Yeah.
Presumably so it's ready to pounce on you if you fall over or you show weakness in some way. But I imagine that if I asked you to close your eyes and think of a robot, why don't you do that now, Graham?
Oh, okay.
You're not going to be thinking about the Go 1 or the Terminator.
I'm thinking of K9 from Doctor Who.
You're not going to be thinking of something like K9 from Doctor Who.
Oh,
You're
okay.
probably thinking of C-3PO from Star Wars, or Robbie from Forbidden Planet, or maybe you're thinking of the Tesla Optimus or the Unitree H1. Basically something with 2 arms, 2 legs and a head.
Yeah.
That looks like a man in a wetsuit or the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz. And this is the holy grail of robotics, and it has been for my entire life. But creating human-like robots that can walk around and interact with people and manipulate objects is a colossally difficult task. I mean, just standing on 2 legs and not falling over is quite tricky.
Even for some of us humans. Yeah.
I mean, it does also depend on the amount of alcohol and the number of kebabs that you've eaten. And for the last 12 years, we've been kind of able to measure our progress towards humanoid robots by watching the occasional videos coming out of Boston Dynamics showing its Atlas robot. So you've seen Atlas. It stands about 5 foot tall. It's got the proportions of a human wearing a rucksack. It uses LiDAR to see, so basically lasers. And it's covered in sensors so that it knows where its limbs are and what they're doing.
Yes.
In 2016, we saw it opening doors and lifting boxes and being pushed around by humans, presumably not thinking about the future, definitely not taking your advice about being nice to ticket machines. In 2017, we saw it doing a backflip.
Yeah.
And by 2018, it could run outdoors. And since then, we've seen it learning to do parkour.
It's amazing. Yeah.
And each time these videos came out, we all looked at them with a mix of awe and terror. And then we forgot about them because although the progress was obvious, it was also fairly steady. And you could see that the robot was still very, robotic.
Yeah, and you were thinking, how will this ever affect me? You know, will this actually have any impact on my life? How much do these things cost? Are they just for billionaires who've bought everything else in the universe?
Yeah, exactly. And they looked, Atlas, when it was doing parkour, as impressive as that was, it still looked like a bit of machinery.
Yes.
You could imagine that era of Atlas exploring Mars or working in the guts of a nuclear power station.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't imagine it in my home. It doesn't look like my washing machine or my toaster.
Yeah.
Just doesn't have the same design aesthetic. But things have changed recently.
Yeah.
So instead of seeing yearly videos out of Boston Dynamics, we're starting to see multiple competing vendors, so companies like Tesla, 1X and Unitree, producing a drumbeat of videos showing their humanoid robots doing mundane things like hoovering or putting away shopping on really eye-catching things like 360-degree turning kicks that we saw last week.
Yes.
Or catching balls in flight or marching in massed ranks, even beating up members of the crowd in popular Chinese showbiz events. And that's complex movement, Graham. Violent or not, that's tricky to pull off. And as if to say, hold my beer to all of these pretenders, this week, Boston Dynamics came out with a new video showing a much sleeker version of Atlas doing some really extraordinarily complex human movement patterns, including cartwheels and breakdancing, Graham.
What? It is like a human, isn't it? The way it moves is extraordinary.
There is something about the way that it runs that is absolutely human-like.
Frankly, it moves more like a human than I do. Oh, it's doing some breakdancing now. Very impressive.
So here we are looking at these humanoid robots doing really extraordinary things. And it's no accident that this sudden acceleration in the capabilities of humanoid robots is happening at the same time as the explosion in capability of AI.
Right.
So your general purpose robot needs to have some common sense and the ability to reason through novel problems. And that requires artificial intelligence, very obviously. So it needs something like ChatGPT that's trained on unimaginable amounts of data, essentially the entire internet. But they don't just need general intelligence. They don't just need to know stuff and be able to reason. They also need specific intelligence related to things like complex movement patterns. And it's often easier to show them how to do that than to try and tell them. And you can do that using motion capture. So you've probably seen the behind-the-scenes footage from modern CGI films where you've got an actor wearing a black skin suit or something like a wetsuit covered in white dots.
Well, that's actually, when I was just watching that video just now, that's what I was actually thinking of, was had they put someone in one of those motion capture things and the robot was simply copying the movements in some fashion, because it seemed so lifelike.
I mean, you could have a person do that and the robot just replicates that live, so like a puppet.
Yeah.
But actually what you do is you use motion capture to train the robot. So rather than saying, writing a computer program that says, if this happens, do this, you can just show it how a human moves and it can learn that way. But motion capture is slow and expensive. Obviously, there's got to be a person there wearing the suit and you've got to film them.
Yeah, Andy Serkis costs a fortune these days, doesn't he? What he charges.
Yeah, and your robot ends up walking like a chimp. So if you want to speed things up, you can actually use something called synthetic data. And that is where an AI generates millions of examples of a kind of data that can be used to train another AI. And you can also, as you showed us earlier, you can let a robot learn through trial and error. So exactly like an animal does. You showed us the robot dog learning to walk.
Yes.
So you can just let the robot try out different ways of moving, and then you reward it when it finds a more efficient type of movement.
Yeah, give it a Scooby snack.
Yeah, it's called reinforcement learning, and it's how we train AIs. In particular, it's how we train the reasoning parts of AIs. And often you'll use an AI to supervise that bit of training. So the AI is actually doing the reinforcement. The AI is giving out the Scooby snacks to the AI that is learning how to do whatever it's learning better. But the really crazy part, Graham, is that you don't need to build a robot at all.
Right.
Because we live in a world of computers, and you can simulate the robot inside a computer.
Ah.
And you can simulate the environment that the robot is going to work in. So if you think about things like computer-aided design or computer games, we're all used to the idea of virtual worlds and virtual things with realistic physics and realistic physical environments. So you don't need to build a really expensive robot. You could actually build millions of simulated virtual robots, and they could all learn to move by trial and error at the same time. And similarly, once you've trained your robot to do what you want it to do, so let's say you want it to work in a factory or in a lab,
Yes.
you can create the lab virtually as well. You could train entire fleets of robots without building a single one.
This sounds a lot cheaper and a lot faster and a lot less dangerous.
But ultimately, you do build a robot, and
Yes.
that is what gives us these really, really impressive robots that we're seeing now. So things like Atlas, things like Blue are being trained virtually. But of course, the only reason that we're going to train fleets of robots virtually is because ultimately we are going to have fleets of real humanoid robots. And the reason we're seeing all this investment and all this progress is because tech companies are expecting to build unimaginable numbers of humanoid robots. So Elon Musk recently went on The Verdict, a podcast hosted by US Senator Ted Cruz, and he predicted that there will ultimately be billions of humanoid robots in the world. And not long ago, in October last year, he actually put a number to that, and he predicted 10 billion humanoid robots by 2040, costing about $20,000 each. So roughly one per person. And you can imagine that people living in the Amazon jungle or the streets of Kolkata might not have $20,000 to splurge on a personal robot. So I imagine they're not going to be evenly distributed. I imagine a future where Dubai, LA and Shanghai are probably crawling with these things. And the reason that they're crawling with these things is because they're going to be doing things for us.
Goods and services will become as close to free. So it's not as though people will be wanting in terms of goods and services.
So why is that? Why are goods and services free in an AI world, or close to free?
Well, you have, I don't know, call it tens of billions of robots. That they will make you anything or provide any service you want, for basically next to nothing.
Things that we don't want to do, we will have robots doing instead. There's just one problem. If we are going to take Elon Musk and his predictions at face value, and actually I don't see any reason why we shouldn't, whatever you think of his politics or his personality, the fact is he does understand technology and he does know how to get things built. If we're going to take his predictions at face value, then we need to take all of them at face value. And one of the other predictions that he made on the same podcast about humanoid robots was that there is a perhaps 20% chance that killer robots will annihilate humanity in the next 10 years or so.
Is Skynet real? Like you get the apocalyptic visions of AI. How real is the prospect of killer robots annihilating humanity?
20% likely. Maybe
Wow.
10%.
On what time frame?
5 to 10 years.
So, Graham, 80% chance of utopia. What do you reckon?
Well, as the doomsday clock ticks ever closer to midnight and we move 1 week nearer to our future as pets to the AI singularity, that just about wraps up the show for this week.
If you enjoy the show, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Podchaser. But what really helps is if you make sure to follow the show in your favourite podcast app and don't ever miss another episode of the AI Fix.
And the most simple thing in the world is just to tell your friends about it before the robots take over. Tell them on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, Facebook, Twitter, no, definitely not Twitter, Club Penguin, that you really like the AI Fix podcast.
Maybe you could just get your humanoid robot companion to do it for you. Anyway, whoever's doing it, don't forget to check out our website at theaifix.show or find us on Blue Sky.
So until next time, from me, Graham Cluley.
And me, Mark Stockley.
Cheerio, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The AI Fix, it tunes you in to stories where our future thins.
To be honest, I think humanity's had a fair run at things. If the robots want to take over, maybe we should just let them now. It seems reasonable.
That's the spirit. Yeah, it.
King, a world obscene, will serve our masters built of steel. The AI Fix, a future surreal.